There we go. Hi, everybody. This is a completely rough start to this event. It's been a crazy morning, and we're just waiting for C-SPAN to cut over. Right now, C-SPAN is still showing the end of the Trump event. We don't want to see Trump. We don't want to have anything to do with that. I've been racing around. I had an amazing morning on the Nicole Sandler show. Had a great interview there. That was really cool. I don't get interviewed a lot, so that was really nice. I don't get interviewed ever, really. Ben Dixon talked to me like long time ago, but that was really cool. I had no idea that she was a radio legend out of LA, and very honored to meet her. And I hope that we can work together to amplify the voice of the people. So that was cool. I got Sean with me here. Say hey, Sean. How you doing, man?
Hey, great job, John. It was a very interesting conversation. It was it was great to see, everyone cross promoting now. So
awesome. And look, we have, thank you. I appreciate that. I tried to represent you well, because really what makes Bernie 16 TV work is the amazing volunteers. I'm the old cranky guy that gets to say things because I'm old and cranky. But we got a lot of people here with us, Sean. We got Dylan and John and the Quicksilver 8 and Georgia and Jilly B and Dennis. I'm going to get good at pronouncing some of your names. Mauricio Harper, is that correct? Trish Yeager, Dutch for Bernie, Judy Meyer. Hi, Linda. Hi, Bernard.
Everyone stuck around.
I know. You guys are either you're bored, you got no lives, you stick around, you're just that inspired by the burn, which I get it. I know how that is. It's just nothing that I wake up in the morning. Sometimes I'm just like dead ass tired. I get to the news. You guys bring me up, and then I'm dead ass tired. And then we get to a Bernie rally, and Bernie keeps me going for the rest of the day. It's really, oh shit. We got Keith Ellison up on stage. I'll shut up now and we'll let these guys go. Here we go, folks. Yeah, you'll have audio in a second, I promise.
Got an extra congressman in me, let me tell you. And I want you to know that as I served in the U.S. Congress with my good friend Bernie Sanders, he has been there for the American worker. He has been there for the American family. He has never stopped fighting for us, which is why I'm so proud to support Bernie Sanders, everybody. And I just want to let you know, that everybody in this whole country is a part of this thing when Bernie Sanders is president of the United States. When the anti-Muslim hate was raging real ugly back in December, y'all remember Trump was talking all of that stuff? We had to explain to our kids that no, your neighbors don't hate you. No, your neighbors actually do like you. It's just that one weird guy over there. But let me tell you what Bernie Sanders did. Bernie Sanders said, Keith, let's go to a mosque and sit right down in the mosque in Washington, D.C. And we'll have a Christian, and we'll have a Catholic priest, and we'll have a Jewish rabbi, and we'll all sit down there and talk about how we are all part of this American family. Let's do that. And you know what? That is exactly what we did. We sat down there, we denounced that hate, and we talked about how this country is for all Americans. And no matter who you are, what your religion is, or what color you are a part of this great nation, and we're not going to let nobody divide us, because guess what? You know what I mean? We need everybody. We're going to need everybody. We're going to need everybody to restore real economic justice for all in America. We can't put nobody away. You know what? The fact of the matter is the money has gone to the very tip top of this economy, and a lot of super wealthy people have been able to do well, but so many other people are struggling. And the only way to overcome that is get vast numbers of Americans, just like right here in good old Dearborn, to come together, right? To come together and to say we're not going to be divided, we're going to stay united, and we're going to fight for prosperity for everybody in this country. And you know what? It doesn't matter if you're Mexican, or it doesn't matter if you're Muslim, or Jewish, or Christian, or Catholic, or if you don't practice any religion, or maybe you're Chaldean, or maybe you're Hindu, or whatever you are, you're welcome right here. We say welcome. We say Ahlan wa sahlan to you. We say assalamu alaikum to you. We say peace be unto you, because we believe this is what we believe this nation is all about. And I just want to tell you, Bernie Sanders, whether it's domestic policy or foreign policy, Bernie is always for the people. You know, I was so proud of Bernie Sanders when Bernie said, you know what, we don't need to invade Iraq. He voted no on invading Iraq. His opponent, and let me tell you, he was smart enough, no, it's true, he wasn't the Secretary of State or nothing, but he was still smart enough. He was smart enough to know that a country that had been under a no-fly zone for 12 years and for 2/3 of its landmass wasn't about to attack the United States. And when George Bush said, let's attack Iraq, he said, no, I'm not going to do that. He said no on that. And I think we need that kind of judgment in the White House. What do you think? Bernie Sanders, when they said, look, when Obama said, we're going to try to work out a deal with the Iranians to try to make sure that we don't have any wars or don't spread any nuclear weapons, Bernie said, I'm for that, and I support that, and I back that 100%. Do you remember that? Bernie's instincts are for peace in this world and dignity for all human beings, no matter where they live. And domestically, right here in good old United States, right here in Flint, Bernie has always been against these bad trade deals which have hit Michigan so hard. I remember when I was a kid working for a city councilman in the city of Detroit, and every day we would see 100 laid off here, 100 laid off there, all these companies laying off workers here and opening up plants all over the world as Americans right here in Michigan were losing their jobs. Bernie has always been against NAFTA. He's been against CAFTA. He's been against the Colombia Free Trade Agreement. He's against the Peru Free Trade Agreement because he knows that we need fair trade, not just free trade, everybody. He knows that if you tell a big company you can shut down here and reduce your labor costs by exploiting somebody else abroad, many of them will do it. So we cannot let them do it. We got to set the rules up to put American workers in a position where they can make a good, honest living. And that means that we don't just open up the door for the lowest wage, worst, most exploitive government in this world. He's been against it while other people have been open to some of these kind of deals. I think Bernie is somebody we can really trust in this area. What do you think? So, and I also want you to know, I'm the chair of something called the Progressive Caucus in the U.S. Congress. The Progressive Caucus, let me tell you about the Progressive Congress. Progressive Caucus was started by Bernie Sanders. Long before I ever became chair or ever came to Congress, Bernie Sanders was there organizing people, bringing us together. And let me tell you, what that means is, it doesn't just mean standing for the right things, because Bernie stands for the right things, but also means engaging people and getting the wind together in the right way. It means involving the grassroots movement, pulling together that great revolution we've been talking about of masses of Americans, young people, old people, people who are in the sandwich generation, people of all kinds, masses of Americans coming on out, and that is how Bernie does business. And so there was a contractor doing business for the federal government. The federal government was doing contracts with these different companies that were doing food service and janitorial service and different kind of services like that. And they said, you know what, we can't survive on $7.25 an hour no more. We can't survive on $7.25. And so what they did is they came out and they demanded they get paid more money. When we went out there, we stood with those workers, all of us, hand to hand, shoulder to shoulder. The lead person out there was Bernie Sanders, what I'm telling you. Bernie Sanders. The person standing with the workers, standing with the cooks, standing with the janitors, standing with the drivers, standing with the security guards, that was Bernie Sanders. Bernie was the one who was not afraid to come out of that ivory tower of that Capitol building and stand with the people who were struggling hard to make ends meet. Now I'm gonna tell you, Bernie not only stands with the people fighting for a better wage, Bernie stands for the young people of the United States. You know, Bernie, for sure, Bernie believes in debt-free college. We want debt-free college, no question. But it does shock me that when Bernie says we need to have tuition-free college, they all just believe that it's not possible. Who believes that if we fight for tuition-free college, just like they got in France, Germany, Denmark, who believes we can win it if we fight for it? We can win it if we fight for it. We can win it if we fight for it, but it's going to require all of us in this room and all of us all over this country to stand up and fight and stand with Bernie Sanders as he makes this demand. And when people tell you, oh, it's not realistic, oh, it can't really happen, well, you tell them that we don't ever give up on our dreams. We don't give up on our dreams. In this country of ours, there was a time in our nation's history when for somebody who was black to sit on the front of the bus was just unrealistic. Some of y'all may remember that time. Some of you may have just read about it. But some people said it was unrealistic. But there were some dreamers out there who believed in the best of America, and they stood for it and they fought for it. There was a time in this nation's history when for a woman to cast a vote was just considered ridiculous and unrealistic. It had to be people like Susan B. Anthony and others who demanded that, look, you know, if women are equal in God's sight, they're going to be equal at the ballot box here in the United States. And guess what? They won it because they fought for it. So what I'm saying to you is, don't let anybody tell you that we cannot have free tuition in our nation's universities, that we can't have debt-free college, that we cannot have a peaceful and just foreign policy for our nation. Don't let anybody tell you that, because we can have it. It is within the grasp of us if we will only stand together and fight for it and believe in it. And we need a candidate who's going to do the same thing, who's going to be the standard bearer in front, demanding that we win these things. And I want to know, do you think that is my man Bernie Sanders? What do you think? That is Bernie Sanders. That is Bernie Sanders. And you know you can trust Bernie Sanders because in the early 1960s in this country, Bernie Sanders can be found fighting for fair housing in Chicago, even getting arrested doing it. Most politicians don't put that on their resume, you know what I mean? But Bernie was a brave enough man to risk arrest because he believed in what we were fighting for, fair housing for all. He knew that it wasn't the reality of 1961, but it could be the reality of 2016 if there were some proud, brave people who weren't going to back down and weren't going to quit and weren't going to tell people, oh, don't, just be realistic. So this is the campaign where people who have their sights set high. This is a very patriotic campaign that believes that when we draw people in and we fight for what's right, we can win it. Don't you know, just the other day we blew them out in Maine. Did you see that win back there? We blew them out in Kansas as well. I'll bring you good news from Minnesota where we beat them 62 to something. I don't know what it was, but we blew them out. And I want to tell you that same victory is right within our grasp right here in Michigan. Right here in Michigan. That's right. That same win is within our hand if we will only reach for it and grab it. And I'm telling you, though, you know, when you go to Bernie, when you campaign with Bernie, you see that the people and the energy and the fire is on Bernie's side, you know, just like in this room right now. You can see it, you can feel it, it's right here up in your chest. But there's a whole lot of other folks who got other kind of plans, and maybe they're not at rallies. You know what I mean? So what does that mean? That means you and I have got to go out and get our friends. We have got to get our neighbors. We got 24 hours to do it, people. We got 24 hours to go grab your neighbors, your friends, your cousins, your uncles, your coworkers. You got 24 more hours. There's a whole lot of people right here in the state of Michigan who will not make a decision until they get to that ballot box. But if you're in their ear and you're telling them, look, you know, did you know Bernie actually stood for $15 an hour minimum wage? Bernie stands for that. You know what I mean? If you tell them, you know what? Bernie actually believes that we can fight climate change and win, and he's been standing against Keystone since before other people got around to it. You understand? You know, if you will get in their ear and you will talk to them and you will get on that phone and you will knock on those doors, we can win this thing. The real key is will to win. Who has the will to win? Does anybody have the will to win in here? Because I'm telling you now, I got on the flight early this morning to come back to my hometown because I'm sure that the people of Dearborn, the people of Flint, the people of Detroit, I'm talking about all over the great state of Michigan, are ready for some real change. and we're not going to lower our sights. We're not going to say that it can't be done because we know that it already has begun. And that's why I'm so proud to introduce to you my friend and yours, Bernie Sanders. Come on out.
Let me begin by thanking Thomas Gilroy for his remarks. But mostly, this is what I want to say about this guy. This guy is one of the great members of the United States Congress. He has spent his political life taking on special interests, fighting for a peaceful world, fighting for economic justice, racial justice, environmental justice. Keith, thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thanks, Bernie.
And I want to tell you something else about Keith and how the real political world works. Throughout this campaign, we have taken on the financial establishment and all of the big money interests. We have taken on the political establishment. In Minnesota, Keith he didn't mention this, we took on the 2 United States senators who supported Secretary Clinton. We took on the governor who supported Secretary Clinton. We took on almost everybody in the legislature who supported Secretary Clinton. We had Keith Ellison on our side. We won by a landslide. Keith basically told you everything that I was going to tell you, so I'm going home. No, I'm not. No. But here is the point, and Keith made the most important point that I can make to you, is that real change never takes place from the top on down. It always takes place from the bottom on up. And if you think back historically at the struggle for workers' rights, you remember that workers came together. Some of them were beaten, some were jailed, some were killed. But they said, you know what, workers are entitled to collective bargaining. They're entitled to negotiate a contract. We will form a union. Took place from the bottom on up. And as Keith indicated, do you remember, we often forget, in 1924 is when women got the right to vote, less than 100 years ago. Now, how did that happen? You think it happened because some president signed something? It happened because women and their male allies struggled for decade after decade. Some died, some went to jail, some were on hunger strikes. And they said, you know what? In America, women will not be treated as second-class citizens. Civil rights movement. It has been going on for hundreds of years, where African Americans, before slavery, after slavery, and their white allies said that in the United States of America, racism and bigotry and segregation are not acceptable. And hundreds of thousands and millions of people stood up and fought back. We still have a long way to go, but that is how change takes place. So when people tell you, we can't do this, we can't do that, all that they are saying is that they don't have the guts to take on the powerful special interests who are preventing that change from occurring. We do have the courage. And before I go any further, I just had the honor of meeting with a number of Arab American leaders right here in Dearborn. And what I want to say is that if there is anything we are going to accomplish together, is we are going to end bigotry in this country once and for all. The Donald Trumps and his friends are not going to prevail in scapegoating minorities in this country. They are not going to be successful in attacking and denigrating our Muslim friends and neighbors. Or our Mexican friends and neighbors. They are not going to divide us up. What we all know, and I speak as somebody who has a lot of personal experience in this. My dad was an immigrant. My dad came to this country without a penny in his pocket, couldn't speak English, from Poland at the age of 17. Never made much money. But he loved this country because of the opportunities that he gave him and the ability to raise two of his kids, first in the family, to actually go to college. That's what America is about. We will not let Trump divide us up. We will come together and create the America that we know we can do. What this campaign is about is doing something very, very radical in American politics. It is called telling the truth. And the truth is not always pleasant. You know, I wish I could tell you just wonderful things. But it is important for us to understand reality, because if we do not understand that reality, it is in fact impossible for us to go forward. Okay? So let me tell you about reality. Reality number one: no president of the United States, not Bernie Sanders or anybody else, can do what has to be done to deal with the enormous problems facing the middle class and working families of this country. No president can do it alone. Now, that is not just rhetoric. That is not just words. That is reality. And you know why that is true? Because, and again, no other candidate for president will tell you this, the people who have the power in this country, the billionaire class, Wall Street, corporate America, the corporate media who determine what we see and what we hear, the large campaign contributors who have so much influence over the political process. No one can defeat this group of people because they have so much power alone. No president can do it. The only way we do defeat them and create an America that works for us all rather than the few is when millions of people stand up, fight back, and demand to have a government which represents all of us, not just the 1%. Tell you a story which is very gratifying. What I have been trying to do from day one in this campaign is to bring working people, bring young people, bring people who have given up on the political process back into that process so they can stand up and fight for their kids and their parents and their own lives. Yesterday, I saw something that was enormously touching to me. There was a caucus in Maine. There were photographs on the internet of a line a half-mile long of people waiting hours to get in to cast their vote. We won Maine with 64% of the vote. In the largest voter turnout in the history of Maine caucuses. Now, we had similar results in Kansas. In other words, here is what's happening. If we allow the same old to continue, you're going to get the same old results. And those same old results will be the rich get richer, middle class continues to disappear, and too many of our people live in poverty. If we want to change that same old, we have to understand that politics is not a football game. Football is a spectator sport. We watch great athletes do their things. Politics and democracy means that every single one of us has to be actively involved in determining the future of America. Tomorrow is a very important day here in Michigan. It is your primary. If there is a large voter turnout, we will win. So as Keith said, bring your family members, bring your co-workers, bring your neighbors. Let's show the establishment that we are not satisfied with the status quo. We want real change. Now, obviously, my opponent tomorrow on the ballot is going to be Secretary Clinton. And let me just speak for a moment about some of the differences that exist between Secretary Clinton and myself. Number one, in this country today, we have a corrupt campaign finance system. And as a result of Citizens United, what we have seen is the emergence of a whole lot of super PACs into which billionaires and Wall Street corporate America are putting huge amounts of money. Now, Secretary Clinton has several super PACs. Her largest recently reported that in the last filing period, she raised $25 million, including $15 million from Wall Street. Secretary Clinton has also gone behind closed doors to talk to some of the major Wall Street financial institutions. She gets paid $225,000 per speech. Not bad for a day's work. Now, I kind of figure that if you're going to get paid $225,000 to give a speech, it must be a brilliant speech. And if it is such a brilliant speech, surely you're going to want to share that brilliant speech with the people of America. Now, we have chosen, Secretary Clinton also said that, she would release the transcripts if other people release their transcripts. Here it is, I'm ready to release my transcripts. Are you ready? Here it is, you got it. Ain't nothing there. No speeches to Wall Street. Now, we, on the other hand, have taken a different approach in how we raise funds. And how we do it is to go to working families and middle-class people. And what's happened over the last 10 months has been absolutely amazing and mind-blowing. We now have received $5 million individual campaign contributions. That is more individual campaign contributions than any candidate in the history of the United States of America at this point in the campaign. Anybody here know what the average campaign contribution is? I love that. I love that. $27. So to quote Abraham Lincoln at Gettysburg, this is a campaign of the people, by the people, and for the people. Now, there is another issue that separates Secretary Clinton from myself, and that is all of you are aware that in America today, our middle class is shrinking. Almost all new income and wealth go to the top 1%. You are aware that many of the new jobs being created pay wages that are just too low. Now, there are a lot of factors for that, but one of the major reasons is that for the last 30 years, we've had a series of disastrous trade policies written by corporate America. What these trade policies are, whether it's NAFTA, CAFTA, permanent normal trade relations with China, or others, the basic principle was the following. Corporate America will help write these trade agreements. They were saying, why should I pay a worker in Michigan or Vermont a decent wage with decent benefits, negotiate with the union, and have to obey environmental legislation when I could go to Mexico, I can go to China, I can pay people pennies an hour. That is what they wanted, and that is what they have accomplished because of these disastrous trade agreements. In this country, in the last 15 years, we have seen the loss of 60,000 factories in America. 60,000 factories and millions of decent-paying jobs. While not all of that is attributable to trade, a lot of it is. All of you know of factories and communities all over this country shut down, workers thrown out on the street, factory went to Mexico, factory went to China or some other low-wage country. Hillary Clinton has supported virtually every one of these disastrous trade policies. I have opposed every one of these disastrous trade policies. Now, last night, there was a debate, and in order to kind of hide her positions on trade, Secretary Clinton announced that I was an opponent of the bailout of the automobile industry, which is so important here in Michigan and in many, many other states. That is absolutely untrue. There was one vote in terms of whether or not we bailed out the automobile industry in the Senate. December 11th, 2008, I voted for that bailout and support of the workers in the automobile industry. And to say otherwise is to not say the truth. Now, there's another area of huge consequence between difference of opinion between Secretary Clinton and myself, and that has to do with foreign policy. In 2002, the Congress debated the most important foreign policy issue in the modern history of this country. I listened very carefully to what President Bush and Vice President Cheney had to say about going to war in Iraq. I not only voted against that war, I helped lead the opposition to going to war in Iraq. And it gives me no pleasure to tell you that much of what I feared would happen is exactly what did happen in terms of the chaos, instability in that region, which has led us to where we are today. Now, Secretary Clinton heard the same evidence that I heard. She voted for that disastrous war. Now, you know, it is very easy when you're a politician to point out what is true, is there are a lot of terrible, terrible dictators and demagogues all over this world. And Gaddafi of Libya certainly is one of them. But it is not just enough to say that Gaddafi was a tyrant and a dictator. Before you make a decision about overthrowing him, you got to be thinking about what happens the day after he is gone. Regime change does not always work out quite as smoothly as some people think it does. Series of articles in the New York Times recently that made the point. The president wasn't quite sure what to do about Libya. Secretary Clinton was one of the more aggressive people to say we've got to go in and overthrow Gaddafi. The result is history, and it is not a good history. Massive instability in Libya. ISIS now has a foothold in that country today. Point being that regime change is more complicated and often has unintended consequences. We've got to be careful about that. On foreign policy, there's another issue, and I wish I could come before you and tell you that I have a magical solution. I don't. And that is, for decades now, there has been hatred and warfare in the Middle East. Everybody knows it. We've had some presidents, Carter, Clinton, others, who have tried to do their best to resolve it. All I can tell you is I will make every single effort to bring rational people on both sides together so that hopefully we can have, through a level playing field, the United States treating everybody in that region equally, hopefully, and I know that there are people of goodwill in Israel and in the Arab communities. This is not an easy task, but it is a task that we must pursue. We cannot continue to have, for another 60 years, the kind of hatred and conflict that exists in the Middle East. Now, this campaign is doing as well as it is winning caucus after caucus because we are listening to the American people rather than just wealthy campaign contributors. We are listening to workers who tell us they cannot make it on $9 or $10 an hour. That's not enough money for one person, let alone to raise a family. And that is why when we think big and when we determine that in America, no worker working 40 hours a week should live in poverty, we know that we got to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour. This campaign is listening to senior citizens and disabled veterans. A great nation is judged not by how many millionaires and billionaires it has, but by how it treats the weakest and most vulnerable amongst us. That's what a great nation is about. There are millions of seniors and disabled veterans in this country who are trying to get by on $11,000, $12,000 a year Social Security. And you know what? Nobody can get by on $11,000 or $12,000 a year Social Security. Unbelievably, there are Republicans out there who actually want to cut Social Security. So I've got some very bad news for them. Not only are we not going to cut Social Security, we are going to expand Social Security benefits. This campaign is listening to young people. And what young people are telling me is, how does it happen that I end up $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 in debt because I simply wanted to get the best education that I could? Now, again, this is what Keith Ellison was saying. We have got to think outside of the status quo. We all take it for granted. Millions of people in this country are deeply in debt for the crime of getting a higher education. You know what? That's pretty crazy. That is not right. What we want to do is to encourage every American to be able to get all of the education that they need, not punish people for getting an education. And that is why we're going to do three things. And again, this may seem radical, but women's rights were considered radical. Gay rights were considered radical. Workers' rights were considered radical. So here is the idea. The idea is that for many, many years, the idea of public education, free public education being first grade to 12th grade was a great idea. Because 40, 50 years ago, you graduated high school, you know what? You could go out there and get a pretty good job. The world has changed. And today, in many respects, a college degree is the equivalent of what a high school degree was 50 years ago. So it seems to me we've got to do three things. Number one, in the year 2016, we have got to make public colleges and universities tuition free. Is this a radical idea? It's not a radical idea. It is absolutely commonsensical. The world has changed. New type of education is needed to deal with the new technologies in a complicated world out there. People need different types and more education. Second of all, you got countries like Germany, Scandinavia. That's exactly what they're doing today. Third thing, and this will shock some of you, 50, 60 years ago, guess what? Public colleges and universities in the United States of America were virtually tuition free. This is not a radical idea. It's exactly what we should do. Second thing we should do is if people are carrying heavy student debt, we've got to lower that debt by allowing them to refinance their loans. Now, as you know, 2008, after Wall Street's reckless and illegal behavior drove this economy into the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression, the Congress bailed out Wall Street, bailed out the wealthiest, the most powerful institution in America. Well, I think that now what we need to do is impose a tax on Wall Street speculation, which will raise the money we need to lower student debt and make public colleges and universities tuition free. You helped bail out Wall Street. Now it is Wall Street's turn to help the middle class. This campaign is listening to women. And what women are saying is, how does it happen that they sit in an office or a factory and they end up making 79 cents on the dollar compared to the guy who's in the other room. And I know that every man in this room will stand with the women in the fight for pay equity for women workers. This campaign is listening to our brothers and sisters in the African American community. And what they are telling us is that we have a broken criminal justice system which ends up having more people in jail than any other country on earth. Shamefully, absurdly, we are spending $80 billion a year to lock up 2.2 million Americans, disproportionately African American, Latino, and Native Americans. Now, one of the reasons for that is that youth unemployment in this country is outrageously high. For young whites, 33% for high school graduates, Latinos, 36%, African Americans, 51%. You want to hear a radical idea? All right, here's the radical idea. We're going to invest in education and jobs for our young people, not jails and incarceration. This campaign is listening to our Latino brothers and sisters. And what they are telling us is that they are tired of living in fear, living in the shadows, and I agree with them when they say we need comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship. And this campaign is listening to Native Americans, people who have been treated shamefully for hundreds of years. We owe the first Americans so much, and it's time that we started paying back that debt. Now, there is a lot of anger out there today in the United States, and I'll tell you one of the reasons why there is so much anger. In my state, here in Michigan, throughout this country, you got millions of people working longer hours for lower wages. You have families where mom is working long hours, dad's working long hours, kids are working long hours. Marriages are being stressed and destroyed because parents don't have quality time to spend together. Kids are not getting the attention they deserve because everybody is working. And meanwhile, despite the fact that we work so hard, and here in America, not a lot of people know this, we work the longest hours of any people in the industrialized world. You all know that? Japanese are very, very hard workers. We work longer hours than they do in Japan. And yet, despite all of that, 58% of all new income created today goes to the top 1%. Today in America, we have a worse level, a more grotesque level of wealth inequality than any other major country on earth, worse today than since 1928. In America today, the top 1/10 of 1% now owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. Wealthiest 20 people own more wealth than the bottom half of America, 150 million people. What our job is and what we can do together is to create an economy that works for all of us, not just wealthy campaign contributors. Real unemployment in this country is not 4.9%. That's official unemployment. Real unemployment is double that. Youth unemployment, as I mentioned, is off the charts. I was in Flint, Michigan a couple of weeks ago talking to people who have been impacted by poisoned water, and we had a town meeting there as well. And the conclusion that I reached is that it was really in talking to these people and listening to their pain, and I don't even want to speak about what I heard because it is so painful, about children being poisoned and the implications of that and what it means to kids' lives, that was happening in the United States of America in the year 2016 was literally hard to believe. It was like I was talking to people in a third or fourth world country, not the richest country in the history of the world. In the richest country in the history of the world, our infrastructure, our water system, our wastewater plants, our roads, our bridges, our rail system, levees, dams should not be crumbling. And that is why we have got to rebuild our water systems in Flint and all over this country, rebuild our infrastructure, and when we do that, we can create 13 million decent-paying jobs. Now, Republicans go around the country and they talk a lot about family values. I want you all to know what they mean by that. What they mean is that no woman in this room, in this state, in this country, should have the right to control her own body. I disagree. What they mean is that our gay brothers and sisters should not have the right to be married. I disagree. But when I talk about family values, it is a little bit different than Republican family values. This is what I talk about. I talk about ending the international embarrassment of the United States being the only major country on earth that does not guarantee paid family and medical leave. There is a woman today in Michigan or Vermont, throughout this country, who is having some beautiful baby today, and that is a great day. But if that woman is working class or lower income, do you know what happens to her relationship to her baby? What happens is that in a week or 2 weeks after birth, she is forced to separate herself from that baby, go back to work, earn enough income to take care of her family. That is wrong. A mom and a dad have the right to stay home with their newborn baby. And that is why together we will pass legislation now in the Congress guaranteeing 3 months paid family and medical leave. And when we talk about what goes on in this country and billionaires buying elections and Wall Street putting all kinds of money into super PACs, you and I know that is not democracy, that is oligarchy. And that is why we are going to overturn this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court ruling. I am a member of the U.S. Senate Committee on the Environment and on Energy. I have talked to scientists all over our country and all over the world. The debate is over. Climate change is real. It is caused by human activity. It is already doing devastating harm in our country and around the world. We have a moral responsibility to make sure that this planet, our only planet, is left to future generations in a way that is healthy and is habitable. And what the scientists are telling us, this is what they're saying very clearly. If we do not get our act together and get our act together in a very short time, this planet, by the end of this century, will be between 5 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit warmer. And you know what that means? It means more drought, more flooding, more extreme weather disturbances, more acidification and destruction of our own oceans. It means more rising sea levels and the flooding of coastal communities. It means more international conflict as people around the world fight over limited natural resources. We must have the courage to take on the fossil fuel industry and tell them we are going to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. Leaving this planet in a way that is healthy for future generations is a heck of a lot more important than the short-term profits of oil companies or coal companies. And let me connect some dots here and to tell you what a corrupt campaign finance system means to sensible policies. You may have noticed, TV doesn't talk about it too much, but you may have noticed not one Republican candidate for president will go before you and say, you know, I've talked to the scientists, I've read the literature, climate change is real, we've got to do something about it. Not one, not one. And the reason for that is that on the day that that Republican comes forward and says that climate change is real, on that day that candidate loses his funding from the fossil fuel industry. That is what a corrupt campaign finance system does. That is not dissimilar from the fact that all of you and all Americans are paying the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. Do you think it's an accident that the pharmaceutical industry pours huge amounts of money into campaign contributions and huge amounts of money into lobbying? That's what you get when you buy Congress. You get the ability to charge the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs in this country. And if you're Wall Street, what your campaign contributions bring you is the ability to overturn legislation like Glass-Steagall, the ability to make sure that Wall Street can do what it wants to do. That's what money buys. And that's why we have got to change this campaign finance system. Now, there has been many, many issues that I have been attacked on, but one maybe more than any other. And that is that I recognize that in every major country on earth, whether it is the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Italy, Holland, Scandinavia, or our neighbors to the north in Canada, all of those countries manage to provide health care to all of their people. The United States today is the only major country on earth that does not do that. I think that is wrong. It is my belief, let me say it again, to be as crystal clear as I can. In my view, health care is a right of all people, not a privilege. And when we think big, we have got to ask ourselves, how does it happen today, despite the good gains of the Affordable Care Act, 29 million Americans have no health insurance. Many of you in this room and millions of Americans do have health insurance, but you are underinsured with high deductibles and copayments. Am I right? Some of you, I bet, have $5,000 in deductibles, right? Some of you have more than that, right? Okay. And what does it mean if you have a high deductible and not a lot of money? It means you don't go to the doctor when you should. And we pay, as I mentioned, the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. Meanwhile, despite all of those problems, we are spending far, far more than any other major country per person on health care. We're spending almost 3 times what the British spend, 50% more than the French, far more than the Canadians. And that is why it is my view that this country must move toward a Medicare for all health care system. Now, I have been told, well, Bernie, my critics say this, my opponent says, Bernie's a nice guy, but, just can't win a general election. Just can't beat those Republicans. Let me just say, polls go up and down, and sometimes they're not always reliable, but here's the fact. Virtually every national poll that has taken place has Bernie Sanders defeating Donald Trump. And almost all of those national polls and many, many state polls have Bernie Sanders defeating Donald Trump by much wider margins than Hillary Clinton. Now, here in Michigan, for example, just a poll out the other day, Hillary Clinton did very well against Trump. She beat him in the poll by 16 points. That's very good. We beat him by 22 points. And that is true in state after state after state. Now, the reason that we will together defeat Trump if he is the Republican candidate is not complicated. And that is that the American people are not going to elect as president somebody who insults Muslims, one of the largest religions in the world. That's not the kind of guy they're going to elect as president. Somebody who insults Mexicans and our neighbors to the south. The American people are not going to elect a president who every day is insulting women, who insults African Americans. Let us not forget, people sometimes do, one of the more, President Obama, who I've known for many, many years, has been subjected not only to more obstructionism on the part of Republicans, unprecedented legislative obstructionism, but it has gone further than that. President Obama, as you know, Donald Trump, a few years ago, led the so-called birther effort. All right? And what that birther effort was about was a very, very significant thing. What he was trying to do is to delegitimize the President of the United States. What he was saying is this guy's not really the president because he really was not born in the United States of America. An absolutely blatant lie. Now, here's the interesting thing. President Obama's father was born in Kenya. My father was born in Poland. Nobody has ever asked me for my birth certificate. Do you think it just might have something to do with the color of my skin versus Obama's skin? I think so. Now, we're going to defeat Donald Trump because the American people understand that bringing people together trumps dividing people up. The American people understand that community, helping each other, trumps selfishness. And most importantly, the American people understand what every great religion on earth, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, whatever the religion is, and that is that love trumps hatred. Tomorrow, Michigan has a very important role to play in the fight for fundamental change in America and a political revolution. We will win if there is a large voter turnout. Please make that happen. Thank you all.
Well, hey there, everybody. We are back. That was Bernie Sanders live from Dearborn, Michigan. Another fantastic speech. Thank you, everybody who's here. Fantastic comments. We had a great comment section going on. I really barely had to switch over to Twitter comments. I saw a question in there about what's going on with the comments. You guys were rocking it. The comment mods. There's a great bunch of chat going on. I think we had almost 600 people here watching. And what I do is I wait for the comments to load up. And when there's enough of them loaded up, I turn those over and start them scrolling through. And then as I catch up with the comment mods adding comments, I switch over to Twitter, let that build back up. So I'm always bouncing back and forth between Twitter hashtags in the lower third and your guys' comments on YouTube. I always choose the YouTube comments first because that's where the main conversation is happening. And then I'll also go to the lower thirds and show, Bernie Sanders and thank you, C-SPAN. That's basically my pattern, guys. If you're ever wondering how the lower third functions in a block. But great to have you here. And hey, Sean, what did you think of that? Just another fantastic Bernie stump speech.
Yeah, keeping the burn alive. We had plenty, like you said, some great comments on Twitter when I was busy, throwing some stuff up there, and yeah, some great comments. Lots of people, still excited about the next couple of days, which are going to be some big days. So
yeah, in Michigan, and so it's interesting. Did you see that comment that just came through there? I didn't see who that was. We could bounce back. I can stop and bounce back if I wanted to, I suppose. Here, who is this?
Bernie at 44% in Michigan.
No, this one, Greg Badmark says there's a poll that shows the gap is now close to 5 points. So that's interesting. I know that they've been talking about Hillary having, I thought she had a lead, like a double digit in Michigan. But, I really don't think the polls are accurate. I think like what we saw in Kansas, which was quite a surprise turnout, even though we kind of knew it was headed that way. Nebraska, Kansas were really both surprises for Bernie. I really think for establishment media. I don't see Michigan. If Michigan really is willing to go for Hillary, then we just have way too many people in Michigan not connected to the internet. Be my
well, that's very possible. Yeah. But now that we're seeing the closing of the gap, I mean, maybe we know that it's slowly, the word is getting out. However much they try and sandbag the truth from the public, we find the cracks and we get out there and eventually, someone hears us. So
exactly. It was great, and that's. Apologize to everybody. This whole morning was a mess. Yeah, I know. It's just like it was. I was so freaking out about being on Nicole Sandler's show, which was awesome and fun, and then it was like, oh shit, and then there's this Bernie rally, and then it's like, okay, we're gonna finish the Nicole Sandler show, and then I'm gonna start the newsroom, and then wife was like, no, you need to take James to the airport. Right. James to the airport. I'm going to do that. Then I'm going to come back. Then I'm going to start the newsroom. So I do that. I come back, go to look at the news. Like, no, we're going to the Bernie rally. So that's what we did, folks, is just go straight to the Bernie rally. And honestly, I have a couple notes, Sean, that I want to talk about, and I'll prep them, and then we can throw in together on chat here. But just between the show this morning and what Bernie was saying, I have a few notes. Just Keith Ellison, just listening to him talk and thinking about what happened on the Nicole Sandler show earlier this morning and how cool that was. Because I don't do interviews, right? Nobody ever calls me, or at least they haven't. It's starting to happen. Yay, that's awesome. It just feels weird. But that's what I want to tell you, is that it's really weird to be on the other side of that, even if in a very small little capacity, right? To feel this kind of people want to talk to me thing that instills, and I wrote this down, responsibility as a representative, which is what I was thinking about listening to Keith Ellison as he was testifying for Bernie Sanders. And I was thinking about, damn, this is where that hits. Once you realize that you have a responsibility as a representative, right? I now feel like I have a responsibility to you as a representative of Bernie 2016 TV, as a representative of free speech, of YouTube assholery club. I don't know, whatever it is, but I feel it's like, wow, there's a weight there. I didn't feel that weight really until I was on Nicole's show this morning, and then I listened to Keith, and I was like, shit. And now I feel like such a heavy. It's cool. It's really cool. I'm honored, but it's a responsibility. I get it. It really didn't hit me until now that I have a responsibility to deliver the news, to deliver Bernie, to make sure that this stays to your satisfaction, right? And the reason I'm talking about all this is because we expect that, or we used to expect that of our politicians. And knowing the feeling I just got there, the little tiny feeling, because I'm not the president, I'm not a congressman, I don't have that kind of weight, but imagine the weight they should feel if they truly believed they were doing what they were doing for the people, and they really understood that they represent the people. The weight of that responsibility should be massive, should guide you in your thinking. So anyway, that just really hit me with that. It made me think of so thank you guys for being here. Thanks for making this something real. And I was really impressed with Joe Silberman on the show. I know he comes from the theater. It comes from theater, but that was a cool conversation we had. I'm sure we'll talk more about that. And it reminded me of the term, Sean, you're going to laugh at this, but we were talking with Nicole, and you remember the conversation, we were kind of talking about how, yeah, we all get Bernie and love Bernie because he is not the old style politician, and he is raw, and we like that. We like the raw. We like the openness, the transparency, the no bullshit, right? He doesn't comb his hair. He's not shiny, polished turd. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I look at the majority of our politicians and government officials as shiny, polished turds. They got ties, they look clean, they sound clean, but really they're just shit. Right? And Joel was making a very good point. Said that may be true, and we all love Bernie, but he's not going to win if he doesn't appear to at least meet the standards of the plastic. Right?
True.
That was really his message. Look, I know nobody wants to hear Bernie Sanders sound like Hillary Clinton. No, nobody wants to hear him use the same smooth lines or tactics that work for the establishment, but that's what the indoctrinated American is looking for, right?
I suppose so, yeah. I mean, I guess it kind of you speaking about that kind of reminds me of like yesterday. I mean, last night he started out pretty aggressive in the debates. But then, for whatever reason, and I guess this is where it ties into what you were saying, I wonder if this was on purpose, if he purposely came out aggressive and then knew he was going to pull back, or for some reason he just didn't keep hitting her harder on certain issues. But towards the end of it, it seems like he was missing out on chances that were clear. I mean, I'm sure he must have been thinking these things while she's saying it. And he missed chances to really continue to make her look silly, and that have that double standard that he was setting up earlier in the debate. So
that's possible. I saw a lot of comments to that. Maybe he just had an off night. He seemed pretty irritated.
True. So who knows what was going on? Other than what we were seeing, but it certainly seemed. I mean, I loved how he was. He came out the gates, and then for whatever reason, it didn't last through the whole debate.
There were, I mean, and Scott, if you'd been in the production environment with this, or I don't remember, were you? Scott was making. He's like, every time, because you're watching it on Scott's big screen from the Hangout, right, and listening to that audio because he's got a big enough TV with his camera, you can kind of see it. So we're watching it there, and he's like, why did he go there? He shouldn't have gone there then, And I almost want to ask the audience, like, it would be so cool if we could have like just an audio. You guys just need to hear Scott's sound bites when. He's like, why did he stop? Why didn't he go?
Well, that's kind of what like TYT does, is they have their little comments while they're listening to it.
Oh, see, nice. I got to figure out something like that. Maybe I'll set it up like that. But it was cool listening to him talk. I unfortunately don't know enough about how to play that game. That's why listening to somebody like Joel is important, because to remind us that we need to play that stupid game. Because there's 24% of America they're still tapped into that game, tapped into that act.
It's almost like Sanders forgot partly to play that game, because like when they started talking about guns, instead of moving the conversation along, I mean, like lots of people have been saying how he kind of fumbled on that topic because he kept talking about it when no one else wanted to, and it's like, hey, if they're not forcing you to talk about this, move on. But Sanders is the type of guy where he's like, no, I'm putting it all out there. He's trying to explain himself and all this, which is great for some things, but for that, it's everyone wanted him just like, okay, get on with it, because this is where Hillary's scoring some blows, with the average viewer. So
interesting. I get it. I understand, like, he's honest to the fault, and he wants to prove his point to the fault. He's like, don't you guys get it?
Yeah.
That's the problem. Like, I'm sitting there nodding. I'm like, yes, pound that into their fucking heads, Bernie. I don't know why they don't get it. I don't know why they keep bringing that up. Right? And so you're right. He kind of shot himself in the foot trying to over-explain that his gun position, and he didn't even need to, right? That was, I get it. And that's where we all kind of expressed our frustration in the comment chat with Nicole about that. Was just like, shit, it's like, we get it. I know that he has to play the song and dance. Nobody wants the song and dance anymore, except for a fraction of America that we're trying to educate. It's like that song and dance that you think is our government. It's not. Stop looking at that. And that was one thing he said to me. So I just want to bring this up. And by the way, I'm looking at your guys' comments. I'm seeing what you're saying here, and I want to say, I saw somebody comment about TYT, and they several. It's interesting, Sean. You're seeing some of the comments like, "That's why I won't watch TYT." because they run
Interesting.
their comments. So some people like it, some people don't. I find it interesting. It's kind of like a Mystery Science Theater 3000 thing, which I kind of enjoy. But
I do find it annoying when
Yeah.
they're talking over it and you can't hear what's going on. But the
Yeah.
way I watch it is I watch two separate. I watch the actual feed and then listen to their commentary. But if you're only watching them, then I could see how it would,
Okay.
sometimes be annoying.
Yeah. So okay. So I just wanted to clarify that. I don't know what we do there. I just wish we could cover the goddamn. We should just be able to broadcast the fucking debate. That's what we should be able to do.
Yeah, with our meta debates, people are watching our comments and
Yeah.
then watching the feed somewhere else. So I don't know if it would be as much of a problem. I mean, you could always mute us and still just watch the feed, but
Yeah, and
Yeah.
So either way, it'd be cool. And maybe that's what we do. Say, everybody, we're going to talk. So mute us.
yeah.
And we wouldn't show cams. We just show the comments and maybe talk about the comments. I don't know. We'll try a different format.
Exactly.
But Joel, I just wanted to bring this up. Joel said one thing that I disagree with wholeheartedly. Well, I don't disagree with, but he's missing the point when he says it. All right. This is the break between old thought establishment and what we're doing. Right? And that is, he said, you guys don't get it. That's not the way the game works. I'm like, oh, no, we get that. That's the way the game works. We're just saying, fuck the game. We're ready to change the game. The game doesn't work for us anymore. It's not a game. This is our country. This is our nation. This is our politics. We're done with your games. Right? And so that's what's so irritating is we have to play the game in order to stop the game.
Yeah.
And that's hi, Rosie. Hi, Rosie Lopez. How are you? I probably have a bunch of comments to run through. Oh, I do.
I don't know if it was with your conversation with Sandler, but you didn't. I remember sometime
Georgia.
recently hearing someone say something about how you have to fight from the inside and the out. You need people in both positions.
That was this morning. I think that was this morning.
Okay, it was.
That was Nicole. Either Nicole.
It was a great point.
Yeah, that's what Joel's talking about. You have Bernie is working on the inside, and when I said we have to remain separate, we're the French Resistance. We're the outside grassroots, right? And he's working within the corrupt core. He has to work behind enemy lines. Basically, he has to work with the very networks that don't want him to exist.
Right.
That's frustrating as fuck.
Well, here's an interesting point. It kind of skew it a little bit. Is that's kind of almost where I see some people trapped in corporate media jobs.
Mm-hmm.
That's not. We don't need to name names, but
Nope.
I really truly hope and feel in my heart that, oh God, I really hope that they're really a little more progressive than that, and they're just fighting the resistance from inside. Where, whatever, I get it at this point. In my job search, I get the skew of when things aren't looking good and you've got debt behind you, and oh well, maybe I can change the world, from within. So it's things are crazy right now.
They are, and did you see that comment come through? Like Wolf and other people putting their wallets before their integrity as journalists, and that's really what we've come to. It's when we talk about the journalists being in a tough place. Okay, and you can say wallet, but I'm
walking that line right now. So
yep.
It's an interesting conversation because at this point it's either working at Costco or pushing really hard for some corporate job that I might still not get at this point because I'm older than the people I went to college with, and I volunteer. There's just so many factors that go into it that people aren't necessarily looking for the super opinionated, 30-year-old guy when they can mold a younger person straight out of college. So,
but that's because you're so stuck with the idea of needing to get a job with an establishment media corporation. That's not necessary, right? Media's moved to the web, so it's those who own the largest internet subscriber base that truly make out, and so internet really has the subscriber base. We pull from that subscriber base as a channel, and so that's why we broadcast to the largest network on the web, which is YouTube. Right? Now we can create our own, we can push it to our own channel, we can push it to an app, we can do that, and TYT has some kind of a hybrid system going on where some of their stuff goes out live YouTube, some of it doesn't, some of it's just captured on a web page, and that's really the best way to go, because until you can pull enough of market away from the Walmart of video, which is YouTube, you are really forced to use it. So in a lot of ways, we work behind enemy lines. We do it on the new media, the web. We have no choice, but that's why we're on channel 5, right? getting channels shut down for doing what we're doing would not happen in a world where democracy was functional. Right? Make no mistake. If you wouldn't have, if our democracy was working, DMCA would not exist in its current form, and YouTube being able to do what it's doing, and the 1996 Telecommunications Act wouldn't have even been in place. The Fairness Doctrine would never have been repealed. You have to go back a ways.
Yeah.
Anyway, you have any insights or comments you want to make from the speech? I had only a couple other notes, but that's it.
No, not really. I mean, we pretty much covered everything I got out of it. Half the time I had my head down, just pushing out all our tweets and great comments that we had. So
I know it's a fantastic comment section, and just, Native Americans. For to protect all Americans, but that made me think of Native Americans. He really said some strong statements about that today, and I was very pleased. Right. I'm not a Native American, folks, but he did say we will. We have really fucked them, and he didn't say fuck them, but something to that extent.
Implied it, yeah.
He implied. I'd love to say Bernie says we have fucked Native Americans. But he won't. And I do a terrible Bernie, but he's made it clear that we need to look. We haven't honored a single treaty, folks. Not one treaty. When the U.S. can walk around, every president says we're honorable. The U.S. is great. No, you're not. The U.S. sucks. Not one treaty. One. Right. So anyway, Bernie killed it on the environment and fracking. What did you think of that moment last night, Sean? Do you think he was good? Do you think I thought he could have been harder on her? Like, fracking around the world, Hillary?
That's sort of what I mean. I mean, at least in that one, he kind of went after her a little bit. But, I mean, I really wonder if they're really telling him, okay, push here, don't push there.
Yeah.
Or if he's just kind of winging it. I don't know. But, I mean, like I said, he did really good on some stuff. And then others, he maybe slipped up a little bit. But I think he won the debate. I think it's easy to see that how Hillary supporters could disagree, but that's only because they're biased and, their candidate wasn't allowed to control the debate as much as she tried to in the past because, Bernie wouldn't let her interrupt him as much. And
right.
So forth.
Right. Well, yeah. Oh, he was rude about that though. I agree with what Nicole said earlier. I don't think he was rude at all. And I didn't really get to see the finger because I was watching Scott's TV, which is pretty far away. So it was just like two heads talking. I was like, okay. And I didn't notice. I love the way he moves his hands, oddly enough, because I tend to be a guy who moves my hands around too.
Right? Me too, yeah.
So, I like people that are expressive. I don't like it when the person's talking, they're just like, but I don't know. Sidetracked. Totally sidetracked on that, Sean, because I was looking at a comment down here. I was looking at what everybody was saying in chat. It's a cool chat. I thought he could have been harder on her with fracking 100%. He doesn't bring out the fact that she sold it around the world. He didn't hit her on a lot of things. Scott was very upset several times about where he didn't go after it. In Michigan, though, what we're hearing is that numbers are closing, right? Hopefully. I don't think the polls are anywhere near indicative of reality. I think we've seen large crowds show up. Nicole said something earlier on the show that the crowds were, and she was talking to Joel, she said the crowds weren't necessarily indicative of the voting populace. I find that interesting. I have a hard time believing that if you're going to take the time to get your ass out to a rally, spend an hour waiting in line, an hour waiting for Bernie to start, you're not going to go vote? Really? I disagree with that. There's no logic there. There's no correlation.
I mean, not as far as like the individual's decision means. I mean, the only thing I think that could affect that maybe is some sort of state implemented thing that's purposely in place to stop people from doing that. But I mean, as far as someone actually doing the former and not the latter, I agree. I think people are in it enough that they know it's important to do both. I would hope.
I don't know. Changing subjects real quick because I got to go to my notes. Is there something else? The whole responsibility representative thing, and then talking with Nicole earlier and listening to Joel talk about it was very interesting because I realized I was talking to somebody who is from an old radio era, right? I mean, she's a legend in radio from LA, and Mark and Brian. I mean, I listened to Mark and Brian. They were on air for 25 years, maybe longer, right? They're huge. They were LA radio, right? KLOS, classic rock. And they had a competition that Kevin and Bean, but no, Mark and Brian were there for 20, 25 years. And if she was with them in the 90s, she was with them before the 1996 Telecommunications Act. Right? So everybody today is dealing with that shift where mainstream media took over the political broadcasts, and their industry was destroyed because of that. Right? There's a term they used to use in politics, and they still do now when they talk about Democrats, Republicans. We've completely shifted that discussion. It's not Democrats, Republicans reaching across the aisle anymore. And this is what Joel was really saying to Nicole, that we as the new media, we as the new populist movement have to reach across the aisle to the old, to the establishment indoctrinated voter. And if we can't reach across the aisle and reach them with their medium in a way that makes them feel comfortable about Bernie Sanders, then we can't do our job. We can't elect him because there are enough of the voting base to vote for Hillary simply because they are presented with good versus evil, Republican versus Democrat. And on the Democratic side, they listen to establishment media, and all establishment media says right now is Hillary, 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 Hillary. How soon can we get Bernie Sanders out of the way so that we can put Hillary in front of Trump, even though she doesn't stand as good a chance to win? And they have completely ignored that fact. So as much as we don't want to admit it, Sean, we have to speak the language of the indoctrinated establishment media voter. And it makes us cringe. It makes us cringe.
It's true. At a certain point, there's some sort of, diminishing returns when it comes to the YouTube, viewership, and to really make or go beyond that, you have to, like you said, start bringing people in that aren't using that.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, I don't know what the answer is. I mean, eventually, I guess a lot of those, demographics tend to be older generations. So I think, as time goes along, it'll be inevitable that it'll start going onto the internet. And I think that's partially why you see the government starting to bite down on internet laws and our freedom to use the internet and to get whatever information we seek out of it, for better or worse, I suppose.
Absolutely. They don't want 322 people still watching. Wow. Hi, thanks for staying here. That's impressive. Usually you guys vanish when we start talking, but thank you. We must be having a good conversation. Thanks to all the mods. Sorry, a little zappy tired. I just switched over to look at that. I think I'm running comments twice. If I ran this list of comments already, I apologize, guys. You may have seen these. You may have seen these before. But Sean, no, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right in what we need to do. One other note. I had another note. So Native Americans and reparations. I'm waiting for Bernie to just say, we will honor all treaties. I know that's a big statement to make, but that's what he really should say. We will honor all treaties. Right? Which means, and I want to make this clear to everybody, when we say we're going to honor all treaties, that means that a lot of the operations happening right now across Native American lands, talk about Oak Flat, right? There's a lot of places where we're mining, we're digging holes, we're fracking, we're raping the land. And these are all places where we said, that's yours. We've taken over the majority of this land. We'll give you that shitty piece of ground over there. And then later on, we said, oh, wait, that piece of ground has something in it that we want. So we're going to come take it from you. And we're sorry. Or no, we're not even sorry. Actually, fuck you. That's basically what the government did. So to be clear, Hillary Clinton pushed for a lot of these agreements. To be clear, Hillary Clinton takes money in the Clinton Foundation and donations to her campaign from the companies, the very companies that have shit all over Native American lands, that have shit all over these treaties on behalf of our government, on behalf of natural resources, right? On behalf of fracking. So for Bernie Sanders to say we will honor the treaties means we will get the hell off these lands. We will leave you the fuck alone. We will apologize for what we've done. and we'll move about our business, remembering that we really shouldn't have touched you in the first place, and we're really, really fucking sorry. Okay? That's what it would mean to honor our treaties. That's what I would hope to have happen. That's what I want to see. I don't think Bernie can say that, though, because that would come across way too radical, even though it would be the honorable thing to do as a country. I don't.
Well, that's that line he has to toe, right?
Right. That's that. Don't come up with anything too radical. Don't be an honorable nation. don't honor your treaties. Nobody does that.
Revolutions, like this, tend to be in incremental. If it's not one big jump, it's incremental. So, we get Sanders in now, and then his second term, or, 2 Democrats down from him, he'll be able to have that power to push that.
Yep.
And, better late than never, I suppose.
And that's the point everybody has to remember. We can't just put Bernie in office. That was the mistake we made with Obama. We have Obama, we're good. No, we have Obama, and we have a whole bunch of establishment Congress people who don't give a shit. Right?
True. Yeah.
So we have to put Bernie in office, and then we have to put Tom Fegan in office, and we have to put Gary Kroger in office, and we have to put all of the other representatives we have talked to on We the People, and we have to put all of the people who are Bernie-crats, true Bernie. We have to put them in Congress, in the House.
And something interesting about that is we're hearing a lot that, because Jeb Bush didn't do so great, that, money doesn't have as much of an influence as we thought. Well, the fact has always been really that money mattered most in municipal elections and off-year elections. And part of that has to do with the fact of from what I see, that low voter turnout. Well, of course, money has a louder voice when there's less people to counteract it. Bernie Sanders, of course, money's not a problem right now because Bernie Sanders has enough eyes on him because it's a national race that he's getting unprecedented amounts of donations. But, as soon as people forget about it and start going about their lives because they can't 24/7, 265 a year, they can't just do it all the time because, look how we're living, right? We're struggling. We don't have time to do that sort of thing and keep up with it all. And so I think that's where it becomes an interesting, aspect of our democracy, I suppose.
Yeah, agreed. Couple other notes here. Bernie mentioned the climate, tying into Native American, tying into this responsibility. Bernie mentioned the climate, and something I was going to talk about today, folks. And I had the cover for the newsroom, and I guess what I'm going to do, because I don't want to get into this whole thing today. I'm pretty like amped out from everything happened this morning, and I don't know. If somebody asked if there was another Bernie rally. I don't know. Have you seen anything, Sean? Heard anything? If there's another one coming tonight, I'll swing it. I just don't know.
I haven't seen anything, but it's entirely possible.
Okay. So, guys, tomorrow's the big day. Tomorrow's the big day. I hope we have hands on deck, as many people as we can. We're gonna. I'm probably gonna do some kind of a streamathon thing. I'm gonna force Sean to be here for a good portion of it somehow, as long as his wife isn't mad. And we're gonna cover Bernie. I'm sure he's gonna be at certain events, but really it's about all out on Michigan. We really want to reach the Michigan voter. We need to get, and Michigan is a vote, right? Not a caucus.
Gosh, I wish I could confirm that.
Shit. Somebody has an audience, which I put. You said it earlier. I think we were off air at this point in time, Sean. You said we really are dancing that line between professional and volunteer, and where are we? And we have to figure that out, folks. I have no idea whether Michigan is a caucus or a primary. All I know is damn people have to go be for Bernie Sanders tomorrow in Michigan, and it's very important because if Michigan has a good showing, and Bernie can show that he commands in Michigan, tying would be okay, but we need to show a command in Michigan, folks, for a couple reasons. One, we want to show that Bernie actually does have a diverse audience. You and I both know that Bernie has a diverse audience. We see it with our own eyeballs when we look at all these rallies. 8,000 people showing up in Birmingham, Alabama. Okay, that can't be a whole 8,000 group of wasps. All right, there's no fucking way that was all wasps in Birmingham, Alabama, 8,000 people. Okay, so the mainstream media narrative right now is that Bernie does not have minority support, and we need to show that he has the diverse audience of the people that have brains and that have themselves connected to the internet and not just plugged into the establishment bullshit machine.
It looks like it's a primary, so we can still get those people to show up, hear what Sanders supporters have to say, and make their choice.
So there it is. Thank you, everybody, for helping me with that ignorance. So Michigan is a primary, folks, and what we want to have happen is for everybody to get out the vote tomorrow. We're going to broadcast early with the newsroom, and what we were going to talk about, what I was leading into, which really isn't a good lead-in, although environment, Michigan, Flint, groundwater, Hillary Clinton, 2006, voting against the EPA bill that would have fixed MTBE, but it would have hurt her buddies Chevron, who was really into that at the time, and they put a whole bunch of money in her Clinton Foundation at the time, right? Senator Clinton in 2006, who today is all over Flint, and they're praising her for being the first person to reach out or arrive on the scene at Flint, but she didn't really do shit there. Okay? Bernie Sanders held a forum, spoke with the people of Flint, listened to what they had to say, and I don't know if you caught that, but it was very moving. It was quite moving to hear what they had to say. Right. So yay for Hillary helicoptering in and taking advantage of a situation. Yay for Bernie for actually fucking doing something that mattered. Right. Just going to leave it at that. But we reached a point in our climate, folks, a point that they said, oh, my gosh, we're going to work really hard never to reach. But we have. And it is the fact that we have that we have gone 2 degrees Celsius above norm for an extended period of time. This year is the first year in recorded history we really haven't had a winter in the Northern Hemisphere. 2 degrees Celsius above norm is about 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit. And while everybody disconnects, or everybody who doesn't, put 2 and 2 together says, well, that's not a lot. I can't feel a difference. Makes no difference to me. Great, things will be warmer in my neck of the woods. It's wreaking havoc and has been wreaking havoc around the world. It's caused starvation zones, drought, massive flooding. And everybody who looks at the weather, see, this is what mainstream establishment media does. They call it extreme weather patterns. Another year of extreme weather patterns. Yep, extreme weather. And they have these new shows, reality shows, extreme weather. It's not fucking extreme weather, folks. It's climate disaster. It's the fact that we've raised the temperature on our climate by 2 degrees Celsius. And that's fucked shit up big time. And the stuff that's fucked up, we're not even going to see those effects till maybe a decade. It's not like you affect the planet, boom, we see the effects, and then they stop. Right? It's not like smoking a bowl where it's going to hit you and leave in a couple hours. It's the climate. It's the earth. It's a massive ecosystem, and we have screwed it. And we are just now starting to feel the real true effects of that screwing. 40 years ago, we could have started fixing that. Exxon knew, our government knew, all the major media organizations knew, and everybody worked together to keep us ignorant. And so when Bernie Sanders says that he's got a program, when Hillary says she's got a program, when Obama says they have a program, we're going to talk with some people Friday from Climate Mobilization that are going to argue with me that all their programs are shit compared to what we actually have to do. Okay. We're pretty screwed here. If you look at how bad things are right now with a 2 degrees Celsius above norm. That's a loud phone, man.
Shit, sorry.
No, that's okay. It's just like scared the shit out of me. Can you imagine what things are going to be like in another 5 years? It's just going to keep getting worse, folks. We have to wake the fuck up. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. We're going to talk about that 2 degrees and what that 2 degrees means and has meant around the globe. This cover, did I even have this cover ready for you guys this morning? I don't even know. Damn, I didn't load it up. See, this is how messed up I was today, because I was like, I'm going to be on Nicole Sandler's show. I got to have she does radio, guys, and I was going to dress up. I put on this sweatshirt, which wasn't the same one. And I was like, I can't look like crap on Nicole Sandler. It's a radio interview. That's silly. But here, this is the cover that Steph made for me this morning. He's made a bunch of these. There is no B planet. There is no planet B, folks. We don't have an alternative. When Bernie Sanders talks about this planet and what it's going to be like in 40 years, right? It's not like we go from where we are now to shit in 40 years. We go there incrementally. We're seeing those shifts. I don't want to live on this planet with the way things are going in another 10 years, right? Think of where people are going to be migrating to. And the equator, folks, everybody along the equator, that's what gets fucked first. Nebraska, 6,000 years ago. 6,000 years ago on this planet, we had a 2 degree above Celsius shift in our climate. And Nebraska was a dust bowl, a desert. Just like the 1930s. Okay? Except that was a different reason. We fucked our topsoil. We didn't know how to farm. Winds blew off the topsoil, and we saw what it was like to have a massive dust bowl. Look up the dust bowls from the 30s and what that did to the environment, to the people, and what that did to food supplies. It was horrific. We saw what we did when we screw our environment in a microenvironment. Right? So this is reality, folks. This is the reality we face. Look, I've depressed everybody. We're losing people like crazy. Sorry, Sean. I didn't mean to like depress everybody and lose everybody like crazy. I'm looking at the numbers. There's like dropping. Yeah, I understand. I understand, folks. I get it. I get it. If you don't want to hear this, we're going to talk about our dying planet tomorrow, but we're also going to be positive about the fact that we want Michigan to vote, because look, if we get Bernie in office, here's my thought. There is a silver lining to this, Sean. My thinking on this is that Bernie can only be so radical when he's running, but that once we get him in office with some Bernie-crats, we can be like, guy, we need much more radical thinking here. Okay, and we can make the big changes. That's the message that I was trying to tell Joel. Or I wanted to have a conversation with Joel this morning and say, look, I get it that you're saying how it works. We're saying once we get in office, we're going to change how it works. We don't like how it works, right? It can work a lot better.
Yeah, of course.
And one of those things is going to be swifter legislation. Let's get shit done, right?
And appointing people to positions where they have a background instead of just being a buddy from, you know, or a rich donor or something, you know, or your wife's, you know, work friend or what the hell ever.
Or what would appear to be the perfect irony. You don't put the CEO of Monsanto in charge of your FDA or your EPA or whichever goddamn job he got that he shouldn't even be near.
Well, he knows corporate media is not going to talk about it, so he hopes most, you know, it just will brush over most people's head, you know.
It's sick. It's just that's what we have to change. You're exactly right. When we have somebody who actually gives a shit about our environment, running our environmental protection agency, not just collecting a paycheck and helping out corporate firms like Monsanto, then we might actually have some environmental protection.
Imagine if the head of FEMA had been someone who actually knew how to do their goddamn job when New Orleans needed us to come and help them. You know?
Then you're right. Then things might be different. Even though
they
we
would
had
have
an
been
president
for sure. Yeah.
Yes, they would have been.
Exactly.
You're right.
Al Gore would have had someone that at least could have held, at least.
Could you imagine if Al had been the president?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Geez, if only the people's vote had been counted correctly.
Well,
I know.
Hopefully Jeb Bush, you'd like to think Jeb Bush will eventually get in trouble for that. I think he's still under investigation for
his
part in that. Well, yeah, they basically said, oh, hey, all these voters kind of have the same names as these voters in this other state. So we're just going to throw them all off the voter rolls. That's essentially what happened in Florida. And yeah.
Well, no, you brought up Jeb. So what do we do? Do we get to put Al Gore back? How do we?
Nope, can't undo that.
All right. Look, I know I've run through this. So
But that presidency has, for better or worse, brought us to where we are today. It's helped in this momentum.
For worse. But yeah, maybe it helped quicken the enlightenment of the people.
Yeah.
Maybe it helped quicken that. I do want to say that I was not aware, and I am sad to know that Jeb stands for John Ellis Bush. I had no fucking idea.
That. Congratulations.
I was already depressed with being related to a crackpot who sells an electric water machine, which you will, if you Google, there's a saxophone player, a physicist in England who's really old, but I'm like, congratulations to you, because I tried to do that and I was not smart enough to be a physicist. And then this now Jeb, who, yay, folks! It's really gosh. All right, I can't. There's worse.
It for you.
What?
At least he changed it for you. At least he doesn't go by John Ellis Bush.
Oh my God, that would be horrible. Why? Why would anybody have the middle name of Ellis? And no offense to anybody that does, but shit, what? Come on. I realize Ellis is a normal name and all that stuff, but that's creepy. That's great. I was put on this earth to fight Jeb. All right. Just know that, folks. That's I am not the twin or anything. All right.
The evil twin.
Yeah, maybe I am comparatively. Maybe that's what it is. All right, this show is just getting ridiculous.
Evil twin. Let's be honest. Come
on. All right, we're getting to ridiculousness, folks. If there's a Bernie rally later today, we will broadcast it. I have no idea what's going on. If we find a link, or if you guys find a link, shoot it to us. Either Sean or I is always watching the Twitters, and we've got other people on other social media things. If you guys know what to do, if you're part of our volunteer group, and if not, I will see you tomorrow with the newsroom. And that'll be on politicalrevolution.tv. Yes, we moved it over to another channel. We did that on purpose. So go subscribe to that channel if you're not.
And look for it on Facebook. There's a Facebook page up now.
Yes, we're doing major things. And I might as well plug your SoundCloud. John is taking as much of our content as we can on both politicalrevolution.tv and Bernie 2016 TV and turning it into audio only, because we've had a lot of people request, hey, I just want to listen to this. I don't want to see your faces. And so, yeah, that's...
Yeah, and I also, and I try and cut it down as much as I can with, technical difficulties and stuff like that no one needs to actually, sit through. So a little more streamlined.
I'm sorry, you're right. They're just talking about Jeb, and I look at it and I see like 3-4 Jeb.
Yep.
Thanks to Stephen Colbert and who is it? John on Wicca said Jeb equal ATM machine.
Yeah.
That was
please clap. That was the best. The please clap.
Yeah,
like, come on.
The record.
Christ.
Like think about it. George W. took 8 years to devastate this nation and give us at least six books of stupid statements that came out of his mouth. You know how they make those books, like toilet books? They made one. There was one for Bill, one for George Sr., one for Ronnie. There were 6 that I saw for W. And that's how good the guy was at saying stupid ass shit, right? And there'll be one for Bernie. There's one coming. There's one for every president, so you can take a shit and read the dumb things they say. But you could be constipated and not get through all of the things that W had to say. Okay, just gonna put it that way. I was going somewhere with this, and I know where I was going. So. Tonight, if there's another feed, we'll do it. Tomorrow, the newsroom, right? Michigan, and we'll be plugging that all day tomorrow. We'll probably do some kind of a streamathon thing as soon as I find out when the results are coming in. I know they're kind of staggering things. They do things different in each state just to make it very confusing. So, yeah, we'll talk about that. And I don't know, anything else we got to remind everybody? We talked about SoundCloud. Anything else?
Nope, I think we're good. We might see you tomorrow, later today or tomorrow morning.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here with Bernie 2016 TV. We will go out with the happy song because we should. We should go out with the happy song. If we end the corporate age, folks, if we do it, we will survive. It really just comes down to that. Do you want to survive? Because it's going to require saving the planet. It's going to require changing the way our government functions, so that it actually represents the people. And that's going to require putting somebody in office who isn't already beholden to every corporation that currently owns our government. Hillary Clinton works for the establishment. So does everybody else. Right now, we've got one opportunity with Bernie Sanders. I know you all feel the burn, but our job, as I talked earlier, and as we talked about with Joel and Nicole, is we have to reach across the aisle. This time, it's not Democrat to Republican. This time, it's the people to the establishment, the people to the indoctrinated, the people to the people next door who don't go on the internet and are watching CNN, right? We have to smack them in the head in a really nice way, hopefully, and get them to see the truth. That's our jobs. Sitting back and being pouty about the fact that they don't see reality isn't going to help. We have to reach them. So let's reach them together. Feel the burn, everybody. It's the happy song. We'll see you tomorrow or maybe later. You know how this goes.
Wealthiest people of this country have seen a tremendous increase in their income. while at the same time the standard of living of working people and poor people has declined. CEOs make more than 500 times of what their workers make. The middle class is shrinking. Poverty is increasing, while at the same time the people on top are doing phenomenally well.
People always tell me, man, you're wasting your time. Can't you see the monolith is immobile? Yes, I tell them kindly, still I've made up my mind. 'Cause the sky above's as big and limitless as it ever was. Gather round, people, in the town square. It's the end of the corporate age. There's a new caveat at the center beware. This is the end of the corporate age. There's no quick and easy remedy that won't end in more calamity.
This is a fantastic time. From my standpoint, this is the best time that I've ever had.
All the bloviators keep on spreading the meme that there's only so much room at the table, telling us we're lucky to be eating the scraps, but we've got all the facts and we're taking our places back.
Billionaires shouldn't be allowed to hide in the shadows. Make them step out in the open where the American people can see.
Gather round, people, in the town square. It's the end of the corporate age. There's a new caveat at the center beware. This is the end of the corporate age.
We are well on our way to seeing our great country move toward an oligarchic form of government.
There's no quick and easy remedy that won't end in more calamity.
Corporate America, Wall Street, the major campaign donors are so powerful that no president can take them on unless tens of millions of people say, guess what, Washington? You are going to start representing the needs of working families and the middle class, not just the billionaire class. We know what's going on. We are paying attention.
In the town square, end of the corporate age. New caveat, sell beware. End of the corporate age. It's the end of the corporate age. The corporate age. It's the end of the corporate age. It's the end of the corporate
Huge